Joining us now is a certified nutritionist and the co-author of the Paleo Diabetes Diet Solution. Manage your blood sugar with 125 recipes and a 30-day meal plan. Welcome, Jill Hillhouse.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So diabetes is an alarming disease in that it's just rising.
It's rampant and worldwide, not just here in Canada or even in North America. We are in North America, we're at about 10% of the population with actual diabetes. But more startling is really 1 in 3 of us have either pre-diabetes or diabetes. So a third of us are walking around with unbalanced blood sugar, and we probably don't even know it.
Well, how do you find out? Or you said that because so many of us may not have a clue that this is going on in our bodies.
That's right. And unfortunately, one of the tests that we often have done with our blood work is our fasting blood glucose, which actually, with blood sugar dysfunction, is the last number to change. So we may be looking at the wrong marker in our blood, unfortunately.
So what should we be looking at?
I think we should be looking at fasting insulin. Insulin is a lot higher in our bloodstream while the body is trying to deal with excess blood sugar, and it would be the first marker that would be elevated if we were to look for it in blood work.
The thing that really alarms me is this is, for many people, a lifestyle diabetes. It's not the one that you inherit. It's the one that you create.
Exactly. Type 2 diabetes is predominantly a disease of environment and lifestyle. Absolutely. Type 1, of course, is autoimmune. That's a whole different story. Although managing blood sugar for both can have similar components for sure.
Now, I've heard, and I may be wrong, that they're seeing it in younger and younger and younger people.
Exactly. And we used to call it adult onset diabetes, and really now we're just calling it type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, because it is being seen in younger and younger teenagers even.
So we've heard a lot, certainly here at the show, certainly in the community, about the paleo diet.
Yes.
It's something my daughters both sort of follow. But how does this help?
Well, the 2 biggest sources of fast-acting carbohydrates, that mean fast-acting meaning that they turn to sugar very quickly in the body, are our sugars and our grains. And those are the 2 primary components that are removed in the paleo approach. So we eliminate the 2 fastest effects on our blood sugar.
So basically, what are you saying? You take away sugar. So
Yes.
What would that be? Natural sugars like fruit and
No, not whole fruit, because that you're getting along with when you eat a whole fruit as opposed to a juice or something like that, you're getting all the fiber, of course, that goes with the fruit. But it does mean eliminating all our sugars, refined sugars. So even from white table sugar, brown sugar, molasses, honey, agave, coconut nectar, all of these things that have made an appearance in our diet in the last 10 years or so. And then all the grains as well. Even things like quinoa, which is actually more of a pseudo grain, but still it acts like a grain in the body. And grains really are just long chains of glucose molecules bound together in a starch. When they're broken down, it's sugar.
So how do we change our thinking about the food we eat? Because it seems to me that that's what we need to do, because food is information for the body as
That's
well.
right. Food tells us what's going on in the environment. So the best way to think about, to change our mind, is to understand that grain and sugar have a huge effect on blood sugar. And that is not the priority at the meal. The first question you might want to ask yourself every time you eat is, what is my protein? And it doesn't mean that we're going to be eating massive amounts of meat and protein at every meal, but protein helps us feel more satisfied. It helps keep our blood sugar more stable. So if we ground the meal in protein and then fill up the rest of the plate with our non-starchy vegetables, of which there are a tremendous number, that is our best approach for sure.
Now, Jill, before we sort of get into the meal plan part of it, my grandmother used to say everything in moderation.
Right.
So obviously we are not living in moderation. We eat too much of certain things. Give us a list of 6 to 10 things that we've just overdone to the point that we've tipped the scale. Because some people are not okay with never having grains again.
No, that's true. No, that's very true. All of our processed foods.
Yeah.
Right? So anything, our grandmothers would have certainly cooked with flour, and that is a refined grain. That is a processed grain. But we wouldn't have had it at every eating opportunity during the day. We have a society of food everywhere all the time. Snacks, and it's a whole grain snack, so isn't it good for us? But, well, it's been ground into flour first, and then that flour is absorbed very quickly and transferred into sugar. So I would say the processed foods are our biggest thing. That I could list off 6 processed foods, right from breakfast cereal and whole grain toast and all of that kind of stuff, thinking about where's your protein at that first meal in the day. Getting rid of all of our sugars, too, and especially, not just especially, but even the sweeteners. We think that they are, because they're non-caloric, we think that they are innocent. We think that they don't have an effect in the body, but in fact, more and more studies are showing that there is some kind of metabolic effect.
I think they're worse than, if I was going to have a teaspoon, I'd rather have a teaspoon of sugar than a teaspoon of, saccharin or sweeteners.
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of the chemical situation around it, but again, from a blood sugar perspective, they may not be innocent for sure.
So, for example, if somebody wanted to have a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, then maybe you don't do bread at every meal after.
Well, exactly. And maybe you look at what kind of oatmeal you're having. In the paleo approach, there wouldn't be oatmeal. But from a blood sugar perspective, is it steel-cut oats or is it your instant oatmeal with cinnamon and sugar and apple slices and that kind of stuff? So is it steel-cut oats and maybe grab some ground nuts and things like that are putting protein in. But especially, oats would not be included in a paleo approach.
Well, I'm scrolling through the book right now, and the recipes look lovely. Tell us how this can help us all.
Well, exactly. It can help us all because blood sugar is a bit of an issue for a lot of us. And when we take out the grains and the sugars and we concentrate on the question of what is our protein first, we are taking the best step that we can to help our blood sugar stay balanced between that meal and the next meal. So the approach is great for all of us, and then we want to fill up the plate with the rest of our non-starchy vegetables. We've included a lot of salad recipes in that book, as well as cooked vegetables, because in the middle of winter, and we're starting to get there, we're starting to get cold, people say, well, I'm get too cold with salads. I don't want to eat salads all the time.
Are you a fan of a device that has just come into our house, the spiralizer?
Ah, yes.
Isn't that amazing? Explain to people that don't know what it is.
The spiralizer is an instrument where you stick something like a zucchini or a beet or something like that, and you spin it around, and it produces these wonderful ribbons of
like noodles.
And when you use zucchini as noodles, as there are a number of recipes in the book for that, it pretty much tastes like pasta. Yeah.
I think it's
pretty phenomenal.
And spaghetti squash.
Spaghetti squash, yes, very definitely. That's sort of a basic for a noodle dish.
So even for people who do not have diabetes yet,
correct, yet.
And for those who have it, but most of us sort of practice the 80-20 rule that we can't be good all the time. We're going to have a piece of chocolate, and we're going to have something at the Christmas party, right?
Yeah.
Are you okay with the 80-20?
Well, I'm actually really not.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So much for your life.
All right.
Oops. From the perspective of blood sugar, if you've got an issue with blood sugar, then the 80-20 rule or the cheat day or everything in moderation really doesn't cut it because you've got a problem.
But if you're trying to prevent...
If you're trying to prevent it, then maybe there's a space for all of that. But the everything in moderation becomes... Is that at every meal? Is that every day? Is that once a week? So at every meal, if everything's in moderation, it might mean that you're still consuming a tremendous amount of carbohydrate.
Okay, so Jill, there are people out there listening saying, ask her about wine.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. Also, alcohol, wine, or otherwise. Well, at least with wine, you don't have a mix, right? You don't have a cola or a juice or something, or tonic or something like that. But alcohol does affect blood sugar dramatically.
Now, you are kindly giving some copies of your book to our listeners and our followers, and there will be a blog up on our website about that, and it will tell you how you can enter, and it'll also give you some tips. But where else can people get the book?
The book is in the Indigo stores and Indigo Online and Amazon, of course, online as well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is What She Said on the Jewel, and we'll be right back after this with a talented songstress, Alessia Cole.